started, right?
Yeah, yes, it has started.
Okay.
Okay. So we started business function assignment. So we saw that why do we need the primary ledger and legal entity attached here and mapping. So it is just to understand that against this particular subledger transaction, it will be posted to the given ledger. And the next step that we have is to create a legislative data group. So I click manage legislative data group. I give SW. So as I told, this is similar to our business group in R2. So what it does is like basically if you take as an enterprise structure, we will not be able to make any changes to it. Always enterprise structure is only one. And if we have maybe the country-wise head offices and country-wise operating offices, then we will use this legislative data group where we can create for a multiple countries. So if you see here the options itself, you will see only the name, that is legislative data group, and the country. The moment you select the country, automatically currency will be selected. And this is all the setup that we have. And we will attach this legislative data group to a legal entity, and we will attach this legal entity to a ledger to identify that this particular LE belongs to this country. And by attaching this legislative data group, system identifies that different countries' operation is grouped under this particular unit. And on top of it, we have the enterprise structure that is global as a one. So we have created legislative data group, and I'm just clicking done. So the next step we have is assign legislative data group to LE. So I'm clicking done. So I'm adding HCM information to our legal entity. I click manage legal entity HCM information. So this is the place that we will attach our legal entity. So if you see here, these are all the HCM related information where we didn't give any sort of HCM information in the system, as we are handling only the financial part of it. So we didn't give the work time and salary level and all those things. Straight away we will go to payroll statutory unit, and we will attach our this thing. So if you see here, we have attached our legislative data group. And if we want to mention the fiscal year, we can give it. And this is a mandatory step in terms of HCM configuration, because unless we have this legislative data group configured and mapped with the legal entity, we will not be able to create employee as an attached with the legal employer as the particular unit that employee will be working with. So we have attached this. So the next step is to create data reference set, reference data set that we have created while we are defining the business unit. So the next step is to create payment term. So I go here, define invoicing and payments configuration. So I click define payables. So here I click payment terms. So I'm just taking as a default. So I click here immediate and I edit this. So if you see here, we will have the installment that we wanted to use, and if we want to apply the discounts and all those parts will be there. So for example, there will be some business case where the, ca- if we pay at the earlier point of time, we might get maybe 2%, 5% of discount that we can define it here. So that we will define like 50% and then 50%. So we will give the date. So when is the date that we will be getting? And the based on the dates, the discount percentage will be applied. So that is first discount, second discount, and third discount. And this is where I told that we have the common reference data set and we have our own data reference set. So we have created and let's check if ours has attached already. So we have attached already, that is HWRDS1. So what we have done is that we are using the standard payment term that was given by Oracle, and all we are doing is attaching our reference set to this so that we can use for the particular business unit. So we know that the link between reference data set and the business unit is that we are attaching the business reference data set to the business unit at the first step when we are creating the unit. I'm clicking save and close. And the next step is to assign reference data set to payment terms that we have attached it. And the next step is common options for payables and procurement. So in R12, basically we say the financial options and the payable options, so that we have classified into this one called different common options for payables and procurement. So I click here. So this is where basically the system will derive all the accounting. So basically we have two places to derive the account code combination. So one is at the supplier site level, or it will derive from the this setup, that is common option for payable and procurement. If at all we are not assigning any account codes for the vendor at site level. So what I have given is that I have given liability account, and then I have given the prepayment account. So unless we give the prepayment account here, system will not generate the account code combinations and these things. So prepayment is nothing but the advance that basically we have given to the vendor, and vendor will adjust the particular prepayment against our purchases. And then we have bills payable. Bills payable is nothing but our future dated payment basically. So let's say we have a letter of credit. So letter of credit is nothing but our document that gives what do you call the information that a particular customer will pay on so and so date. So that is called future dated payment, for example. So that can be used here to define this account and use this functionality when we have this letter of credit, and the other documents we have is document against cash. Similarly, we have a lot of documents where we can use this future dated payments. And then we have conversion rate, variance gain, and variance loss. So basically, when we deal with the multiple currency, that is, we are working with US country, and our business operations spread across maybe India or China or some other countries. we might need to use the different currencies to make the payment. So for those kind of scenarios, what will happen is that system will capture the rate variance, whether it is gain or loss. So that should be captured under a particular account. So that is what we call rate variance gain or loss. And then we have the offset. So offset will be used when we use different balancing segment where we have at expense booking, we will use different balancing segment. If you are using it, the automatic offset, what it will do is like it will basically offset or it will nullify the balances and it will give us the proper accounting entry. So that is the work of automatic offset. And then we have a one-time payment. If we have one-time payment, maybe we can use this like liability and expense we can use. So basically it will derive from here. And then we have currency conversion. So that is we have given the corporate account. So if we have defined specific rate type for this, maybe we can use it. So as a default, I'm giving corporate. And then we have realized gain and realized loss. So basically, what is realized gain and unrealized gain? So unrealized gain is something where we haven't realized or we haven't made payment against this particular invoice. Where realized is something that we have made payment. We might book invoice this month and make payment next month. So this is what we call realized gain and realized losses. So that will be captured under this account. And then if we want to give the expense at a different level, maybe we can give. So expense at receipt and expense at period end. This we can give only for the expense accrual. So what is that receipt and what is that period end? So basically accrual will happen at receipt. The moment we enter the receipt, the accrual will be generated. If we wanted to generate it periodically, we can set it. But it will apply only for the expense accrual. We cannot do it for the inventory. So that is the major classification. So basically, what is accrual? So accrual is nothing but we have booked an purchase order. So based on this purchase order, we have received the item, but we haven't invoiced it. So till we invoice it, we will see this accrual. The moment we invoice it, we will see the liability created for this particular transaction. And against this liability, we will make the payment. So once we make the payment and do the reconciliation, the entire cycle will close. So this is what we call the accrual, and we have the receipt and period end. So this is all about the common options for payable and procurement. So basically, we have it in R12 as well, but in different name. So this we have it in Fusion with common option for payables and procurement. Okay, so we have defined common options. So the next setup is to do invoice options. Okay, so invoice grouping is specific to only the invoice options. So if you see here, you will see require invoice grouping. So do we want to group the invoice? Or we have the categories, I mean the document categories different for the particular period or the particular year. So do we want to override it? So that option we can give it here. And we have the allow adjustments to the paid invoice. So once the invoice is paid, do we want to make allow to make adjustment to the invoices? So that we can enable it here. And we have the third party payments. So the third party payments is nothing but that I have sold some item to a particular customer, and if I have to pay to the another vendor, maybe I will attach the third party, and the customer will make payment to this third party. So that is what this functionality is all about. So basically, we have to enable it here, and we will have to enable at the vendor site level. and then we can make the payments. So that will remit to the particular supplier, I mean the third party. And then we have recalculate invoice installment. So do we want system to calculate the invoice installments? And then we have hold unmatched invoices. So this always we will take it. So what will happen if we give this hold unmatched invoices is that always system needs the purchase order or the receipt or something to match with the invoice. Unless we match any document with the invoice, system will always says the hold. So what is hold basically? So hold in the sense we have both the manual hold and the system hold. So this is one of the system hold. So system hold says that there are few cases that system will hold. Let's say there is a difference between line and distribution, system will hold. And let's say this case that the invoice is not matched, then system will say hold. And there is an variance, so that we call purchase price variance and invoice price variance. So basically, what is purchase price variance and what is invoice price variance? So purchase price variance is something that is there is a difference between the item price and the price that is defined or given in the purchase order. So that we call purchase price variance. And there is something called invoice price variance. So if there is an invoice price variance, there will be difference between purchase order price and the price that we have attached it here in invoice. So this kind of hold might happen. This we call as an system hold. And there are few cases where we will have the manual hold, that is something that user will put hold for some reasons that can be customized. So that is the difference between system hold and the manual hold that we will place. And this is one of the system hold that system will not allow us to make the invoice validated if we enable this option hold unmatched invoices. So I'm just disabling this. So this we can enable at both the invoice option level as well as the vendor level. So if we have given it at the invoice options level, so system will always take this as a global. And at vendor level, if I have disabled this option, then always system will allow me to override it, which means I can still able to process without matching any of the document, that is purchase order or receipt or anything. And then we have enable invoice accounting code workflow. So this is basically a workflow, so that needs a technical thing into it. And then we have prevent deletion of invoice attachment. So basically, when we are creating an invoice, always we will have few attachments. If we are speaking about the real-time scenario, we will have some sort of attachments. So if we have attached a few attachments, if we don't want system or any user to delete this attachment, we can enable this option. So this will basically prevent user in deleting the attachments. And then we have the receipt acceptance days. So when we are matching this receipt against this invoice, so how many days do we want to have? That limit we can set it here. And then we have invoice currency and the payment currency. So if we want to give as a difference, so again this is in R12 we cannot have a different thing, but here in Fusion we can do like invoice currency can be different from payment currency. And then we have the pay group. So pay group is nothing but a classification or grouping of the payments. So where it will help the pay group or this related setup. So basically this will be helpful when we are making the batch payments. So to understand this the pay group, basically PPR or the payment process request will allow the system to select the given invoices. So basically business will run, let's say commission we have one batch, and we have incentive another batch. So for this different batches we will create a pay group, so that this batch will be selected for this particular payment process manager or the request. So that is where we need this pay group. and payment priority. This is just an priority. And then we have the payment term. So payment term is what we created. So what we have attached for us is immediate. So that is why we are not able to see other payments. So it is again depends on our reference data set, which is attached to the business unit. So payment term is nothing but in how many days I can make the payment. So we have selected immediate. That means the moment I receive, I will make the payment. And payment term basis. So from where it should calculate basically. Is it from the goods received date, or is it the invoice date, or is it the invoice received date or the system date? So I have selected the invoice date. So if the invoice date is maybe 20th of July, then the maturity will be 20th of July. If I have selected system date, then it will be today's date, that is 26th July 2020. And accounting date. And accounting date also I have selected as an invoice date. So that whenever I change this invoice date, system automatically take care of changing the accounting date. And the budget date, since we have given the budget as well. So if we want to have it, then we can have either the accounting date, which means accounting date is nothing but invoice date. So if we give accounting date, which means system will consider invoice date. Or if you want to use the system date, we can use it. And the quantity tolerance. So when do we need quantity tolerance? Is that, let's say we receive an item of 10, maybe we have ordered for 15 and we have received maybe 10. And if we are crossing the limit, let's say we ordered for 10, and if we need another 5 quantities, we need to have the tolerance. Unless we have the tolerance, system will not allow us to proceed further. System will give us the hold. So that is where we will need the tolerances. And then we have matching. Matching is nothing but allow final matching. Do we want to allow the final matching? And we have matching distribution override. If we want to override the distribution, so that will allow basically. And then we have transfer PO distribution additional information. So this additional information is nothing but our DFF. So DFF is nothing but, so basically we have two things. One is KFF and another one is DFF. So if we are storing this information in DFF, so whether it should be transferred from procurement module to the payable module. So that is what means transfer PO distribution additional information. And then we have discount. So discount is basically whether we wanted to exclude the tax and freight and this thing. So how do we want to decide it? So that is what all about the discount part. And then we have the prepayment. So prepayment is like whether we wanted to settle down immediately, or how do we wanted to have. So that is all about the prepayment. And then we have the approval. So as I said earlier that in in R12 we have AME to set up this invoice approval hierarchy and set up the configurations and all this. But here we have BPM. So BPM is nothing but business process management, where it will define set of approvals to enable to send it for the particular supervisor or the manager and get it approved. And unless we enable this invoice approval, we will not be able to select the second or the respective actions. So allow force approval is like even if we have something that is blocking, then we will allow force approval. So then we have the interest invoices. So if we wanted to create any interest invoices, let's say we have crossed the limit to pay, or we didn't pay on a maturity date. Then if you want to create an interest invoice against us, then maybe we can create it. So this is the option that we will create, where it will say the minimum amount and all those things. And then we have payment request. So that always we will select immediate. And if you want to attach a specific pay group to this request, we can select. So this is all about our invoice options. Okay, I'm just saving and closing this page. And the next setup that we have is payment option. Okay, so this is the payment option that we have. So basically in payments options, we don't have much, only few setups are there. So that is like allow payment date before the system date. So let's say system date is today, and if you want to make the payment on 20th July, system will allow if you enable this option. And allow override of supplier side bank account. If we want to change the bank account of supplier, we can change it here. And the document category override, same thing. The document category are the voucher number generation things that we can override. And we have allow payee override third party payments. So third party payments override, that is what we saw in invoice options. I mean the common configurations. And we have account for payments. So at payment issue, at payment clearing, at payment issue and payment clearing. So what will happen here? So basically we are giving an payment to the vendor. The vendor will deposit this particular payment in bank, and bank will clear this, and after that we will get the bank statement from the bank portal, and then we will match it with the particular transaction in the AP module. So when we say at payment issue, so the moment we issue the payment, the accounting entry it will generate as a cash clearing. So the moment the payment is cleared from the bank end, so the system will say that it has cleared and it will be reconciled. So that is when we will have the cash account knocked off with the cash clearing account. So that is what that is the scenario when we will need this at payment issue and clearing. So if it is clearing, it means only at the level of clearance or the reconciled status. At issue in the sense, the moment we issue the payment, the payment will be cleared. So this kind of scenarios will work for the cash payments basically. Okay, so these are the setups that we have it for payment options. I'm just clicking save and close. So the next step is distribution set. So distribution set is not an mandatory option. So this is optional. So I'm just showing why do we need this distribution set. So basically distribution set will enable us to have the accounting code combination to be set up here. Maybe if I'll show once. Okay. Okay. So here I just gave as an example of 100% distributed to only for the rent. So if at all we have a scenario where we will have to distribute to the multiple expenses, let's say for the internet charges, for the rent, and for the other charges or the office supplies we wanted to create, we can give accordingly like 25, 25, 25, 425, which will accumulate into 100 percentage. And we can define the particular combinations here and we can set up the distribution. So it is nothing but distributing our accounts in one shot. We can give it instead of entering the account code combination every time. We can use this option. But this is again an optional setup. Okay, so we have created the distribution set, and the next setup is to create employee user. Okay. So if we wanted to create employee user, always it is suggested to give it through this navigation, that is manage user. So from the manage user, we will be able to create this employee. So basically, this will tell the system that this user is an employee. So this is basically an HCM record. So without this HCM record, we will not be able to create the procurement agent. So this is an thing that we have it in Fusion basically. So what I have given is that I have created an user and I have attached the user with the login that we have created for this user. And I have given person type as an employee. And we have the legal employer. So how did we get this HWLE as an legal employer is that we have enabled this legal entity for the payroll statutory unit, and we have enabled legal employee at the LE level, and we have attached the legislative data group. So this three should be enabled for this particular unit to be enabled as a legal employer. So without this legal employer, we will not be able to create this employee user. Okay. So we have attached the legal employer and we have attached the business unit. So these are the mandatory setup here. So we have done it. So I'm just saving and closing. So the next step is to create procurement agent. I go here, manage procurement agent. I'm not creating it. I'm just giving it. So I'll just select the business unit and I'll select the employee user that we have created, and we will inform the system that what are the functions that will be allowed to this particular employee user. So if we don't want to allow employee users to create a requisition purchase order, we can restrict here. Maybe if he wants to only to view it, we can give view, or we can give the full access, or we can give none. None is nothing but we are restricting the employee user. So maybe we can give the respective access, that is manage the requisition, purchase order agreement, and negotiation, and catalog, and manage supplier. So manage supplier is the main setup basically if you wanted to give. And then we have the supplier qualification and analyze the spend and all those things. So these are the setups that we need. I'll just open and show that what we have given for this user. So we have enabled all the access for this particular employee. Okay, so we have created the procurement agent. So I'm just clicking save and close. So we have created the procurement agent. So the next step is to create payment method. So basically, what is payment method? So payment method is nothing but the mode of making the payment, whether we are making in the cash payment, or we are receiving or sending in check, or we are sending in through online transactions, or like online transaction like NEFT, RTGS, and if you want to pay in maybe the Google Pay or something, even even that we can capture it here. So I have just created as a check as a sample. So I'll just explain how it works. So I have just given the name and I have given the usage rules. So do we want to assign this payment method to all the payee? So I have enabled it. And if you want to use only for the specific business unit, we can use it. Or if you want to use only for a specific legal entities, that also we can make it. Or maybe if you want to use only for the invoices, then we can use it. So those kind of restrictions we have. And that is for, that is with module wise. We can enable our payables as well as the receivables. And then we have it for the cash management as well. And then we have the validation. If at all we wanted to have specific validations defined for this payment method, we can define it here. And then we have the bills payable. Bills payable is what I told earlier that for the future payments, future dated payments. So if we want to use this functionality, we will have to enable this option and give the maturity date override if we require how many days we wanted to use. So these are the options that we have for payment method. So basically the mandatory option is to enable for the payables module and to give or make this as an active. So I'm just clicking save and close. So the payment method has been created. And then the next setup is to create PPP. That is payment process profile. So this is the process profile that we have. So basically, what is payment process profile? So payment process profile will define how do we want to process this particular payment or the batch. So if you see here, we have the payment profile, payment process profile name, and we have the file format. So the file format is nothing but the actual format or the payment file. It will be generated in the specific format that we will have to code and generate this format. So I'm taking the standard check format. If we want to customize it, we can customize it. And then if you see it here, the processing options, we have printed and electronic. So what is printed and what is electronic? So if it is an electronic, it means the transaction happens online. If it is printed, which means we will physically handle this particular what do you call the paper copy, and we will deposit in bank. So printed will be mostly used for check. So I have just given check, and we have the payment document. So what is payment document? So payment document is something that if it, let's say for in this case we have and this is not a mandatory setup to have a payment document. So in this case, I have selected check as an payment method. So that is why I have created this payment document from the bank setup and attached it here. And then we have send file or send to printer. So if we are enabling this option, we will have to give the default printer. So that whenever we are making this or attaching this particular payment process profile, system will automatically pick this setup, that is the default printer, and it will print the check. Okay.
Sir, one thing, sir, just check number uh, that how we will assign, sir. Check
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. Check number basically we will assign in bank setup. So
Okay.
after defining the bank accounts, we have a setup to define the payment documents. So that
Okay.
is where we will define the payment document or the check number. So that we will see as a part of bank and bank account creation.
Uh, that will take years, sir. The payment process file that you are telling, no, that
Hmm.
check number will fetch here. Sorry, this any link between that?
No, no. So there are two ways of basically processing the payment. So
Okay.
one is with the check. So check is nothing but we are just printing the check
Printing.
and we are carrying this check to the bank to get the amount or to send the amount. So in
Okay.
case of electronics, so what will happen is that again there we have multiple ways of handling the transaction.
Okay.
So we have, let's say that there are two ways. One is manual and the other is automatic. So
Okay.
what is manual? So manual is nothing but we have set of format where we will give it to the bank. Let's say HDFC Bank. So we
Okay.
will give the payment file in certain format and upload in the HDFC net banking. This thing for a corporate,
Okay.
they will have a net banking. So from there, we will take this file downloaded from Fusion, and then we will upload it manually in the HDFC net banking site. So this is manual process.
Okay.
And the other way of doing it is that we have maybe host to host communication. So what is host to host communication is that basically they call whitelisting our server with the bank. So which means bank will allow us to make or communicate between the bank server and our servers when we make an payment file. So what system will do is that for that we will build an custom program and all those things. But
Okay.
apart from that, what system will do is that basically system will pick the payment file from our server and place it in the bank server. So again, similar to our process, bank will always have a scheduled program where it will pick the file and it will process the payment.
That
So
is, this is for NEFT. That is electronic mode of payment. Huh?
yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay, not check, physical check you
No,
are
no,
not.
not for physical
Okay,
check.
okay.
So
Because
that
you gave the heading like check, I got. Okay, okay. Now
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. So that is what I told. So I was explaining about the electronic. So
okay.
printed is always we will just print. So that is why I told when we chose this as an printer, we will have this default printer so that check will be printed. If at all we don't have this option, maybe we can just record in the system and we will have the checks given by the banks and we will use that option. So for that,
Okay.
we will just have the check numbers record.
Oh, now it's clear, clear. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are the options that we have. So basically, I mean, we are clear or we need any information?
It's okay, sir. You can proceed.
Okay, fine. So these are the payment method that we can use, and these are the options that we have, and the system can handle multiple scenarios like the host-to-host communication or through the SFTP, or if you want to process as a manual, or other way of doing it is like check, we can just handle it with the system, or if you want to just record the transaction, we can record. So these are the multiple options that we have. So those are the setups. So if you see as a whole, this setup defines how a payment should be processed. So that is why we call this as a payment process profile. So here similarly, we can give the usage rules. Like if we want to define for a particular payment method, we can define our particular bank account we can define. And if we speak about the bank account, we have two bank accounts. So one is supplier bank and the other is internal bank. Internal bank is something our own bank, and supplier bank is bank of the vendor. And we have the business unit. If we want to specify only for a specific business unit, we can mention it here. And then we have the payment system. I mean, this is little technical, so we will. I mean, we will not touch this part. And then we have payments, where if we want to group on a particular basis, we have multiple options. So I have selected only the due date, and then we have the payment file. So if we want to attach a particular format, then we can attach. And we have the creation rule. How do we want to create this based on the business unit or the payment date or the bills payable? We can create it. And if we want to set a limit for this, then we can limit it. The payment limit is nothing but maybe if we can limit it till 1 lakh or 1 million, we can limit it. And then if we are dealing with multi-currency, we can enable, I mean, we can give this rate type, that is corporate or spot or user type. So this we can give. And again, we have this grouping. So the grouping again, how do we want to group? So I have just given the payment date. And then reporting and additional information, it is just giving the payment file this thing to be attached here. So this will be useful when we are using the PPR. So if we are using the manual payment or the payment workbench, then maybe we will use this as an advice, payment advice. So this is where we will use this option. So if you see here, separate remittance advice. So this we will attach it here. So these are all the reporting part, and the additional information is something like an DFF. Since we haven't enabled any additional information, the screen is blank. So this is our payment process profile. So we have saved it, and we have saved and closed it. So we have created our payment process profile, and now let's try to create a vendor. So to create a vendor, we need to basically have three parameters. That is, we need to have the procurement agent. Before creating the procurement agent, we wanted to have an employee user, and employee user will be created as a procurement agent. So once this procurement agent is created, we will assign specific roles like supplier manager and supplier administrator. So once this is done, then we can create a vendor. So basically, where do we have this restriction is that anyone can create vendor, but site can be created only by the procurement agent. So that is where we have the restriction. So we have created the procurement agent, and we have created the employee as well in the previous setup. So what we are going to do is we will directly create an vendor. So to create vendor, I'll just navigate to the home, and under the procurement tab, I'll just query. Okay. So here I have the function to create supplier. So I click this. So this is again like a dashboard, like so what are the actions that needs to be taken, or if there is an pending approval that needs to be verified, and if there is an incomplete supply, so that will be displayed. Similarly, there are actions to be taken. So those priorities will be listed down here.
This is before creating. That is, we are going to create vendor, no, sir? Vendor,
Yeah, yes, correct.
vendor information.
Mm.
This infusion accounts payable. In that we create a vendor, or in the procurement SEM they will create.
No, in SEM only. In
Yes.
accounts payable, basically we will not create vendor. The
Okay.
reason why we have it in procurement is that, see, basically, if we see as an, I mean, for a practice purpose, we can have the vendors creation and accounts payable payments
Okay.
and everything. But if you see in real time,
Real scenario.
yeah, in real time, it will be handled by different people.
Different, different. Correct.
Yeah, for a person who creates the invoice, if you ask him to create a vendor, he will ask he will say this is not my role. And
Correct.
if you ask a person who makes a payment, he will say making the invoice or making the supplier is not my role. So it should be it should come from the procurement or the inventory team basically. So mostly it will be handled by procurement. So that is why it is grouped under procurement.
Okay.
And if you see even the invoices and payment, it will be two different functions here. So under invoice, so basically this is one function, that is creation of supplier.
Okay.
Similarly, in payables, we have invoices as a separate function and payment as a separate function.
Okay.
So if you see here on the sidebar, you will see multiple options. So
Okay.
similarly, when you click this invoice, we will have only the invoice related information, but
Okay.
no payments related information can be queried out here. So it
Okay.
should be taken there. The reason they split it is because they wanted to have department wise access. So if we wanted to restrict particular access, so as I said, we have this customizing the role. So
Okay.
if we customize the role, we will be able to give only the invoice or only the payment options. So that is the main reason why Oracle has came up with this structure of having supplier with procurement and completely handling the invoice and completely handling the payment part.
And one more thing, sir. I had a doubt.
Yeah.
Can I clarify?
Yeah, sure, sure. Tell me.
This with regard to creation. See,
Mm.
actually, in my earlier this thing where I worked, see,
Okay.
they assigned roles for creating only the masters, like vendor master, customer master, or
Okay.
like that. They will be assigned like that. In Fusion, is it possible to assign only for creating like this?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it is possible. So that is what I was saying. We need
okay,
to customize the role basically.
role based.
It's not
Okay.
only for the master. If you want to give access only for a particular business unit, also we can give. So
Okay.
that is possible through customizing the roles. So
Role.
basically, we will customize the role and we will attach this customized role to the particular user. So
Okay.
you will be able to create only the masters. So that
Okay.
is possible.
Okay.
Okay. So we have created a vendor. I'll just show that. Or okay, maybe I'll create a new vendor. So I'll give vendor one and I'll give business relation. So here we have two things. One is prospective vendor and the other is spend authorized. So prospective vendor is just like a vendor that he has just onboarded, but he hasn't yet authorized to make any deliveries or any payments to this particular vendor. So that we call as a prospective vendor. So spend authorized vendor is the one who will make transaction. If we have created a vendor with prospective, we will not be able to make any invoices or payment against this vendor. So only the prospect spend authorized vendor will be able to make any kind of invoice or the payments. So I'm clicking spend authorized vendor. So I'm just giving this as an corporation. So I click create. So this will create vendor for me.
With regard to this, I want to have it.
Yeah,
This
this.
now wherever is GST is enabled now, sir.
Yeah.
So that the GST part will come into effect of a GST number and all giving we can define here, no? Because they want to take input credit and all, no?
Yeah,
So in
that
this
we can define it here, and also we have separately another offering called taxation. So
taxation, okay,
basically, fusion tax they call. So there we can define the regime and we can define the code and everything. So
okay,
so that we can define.
okay.
So India specific taxation Oracle is not that strong, or they haven't released it.
GST, sir.
Yeah, India specific in the sense, if you take R12, they have given the Oracle financials for India. So this
Okay,
is India specific. So basically, it will take care all those actions. So similarly, we don't have infusion for India specific. So till now, Oracle is working on that. They are yet to release those releases.
okay,
So for now, we have only the fusion tax. With the fusion tax, we will handle all those GST and the TDS calculations.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
This supplier means supplier name, sir. Name of the supplier.
Yeah, name of the supplier.
Okay. And the supplier number is auto generated or
Yeah, we have a setup actually, supplier
okay,
numbering. So that is
okay,
where we will define. If we wanted to give any number to start with, we can give there.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the information that gave before creating this page. So that is what reflected here. Supplier and supplier number and business relation we have given spend authorized. And and we can see here the sources manual. So there are two ways of creating supplier. So one is we can upload through the spreadsheet and the other one is creating manual. Since we have created from the front end, system is saying us that this is manual creation. And then these are all like customer profile additional informations that we will define that is this an one-time supplier. One-time supplier in the sense we will use only one time. I mean, for an emergency purpose, we will create a supplier and we will make it. So others are regular supplier where we will do purchases regularly. And then we have corporate profile. If you wanted to capture the detailed thing, we can capture like year established and who is the chief executive and the principal name and when they incorporated. So all those are like additional information. So similarly, we have the products that they are handling and the business classification, all these things. And then we have the transaction taxes. If we wanted to give vendor specific, then we can attach it here. So we will say allow tax applicability, and we have this offset tax and these things so that we can have. So basically, if you see here, you will see all the tax related things like the country specific and tax registration, this thing, and regime code and jurisdiction, and everything will be there. Basically, tax related setups. And then we have income tax things. So that is taxpayer country and the reporting thing and these things will be recorded here. And then we have payments. So what payment are we trying to have as a default so that whenever we are creating an invoice, payment will be automated. And then we have address. So as I said, profile can be created by anyone. Anyone can create a profile when a particular user have enough roles and responsibilities assigned to them. But address can be defined only by a procurement agent. Unless we have defined the procurement agent as an employee, we will not be able to make or add the address and the site information to this vendor or any vendor. So since we have added procurement, we should be able to add the address as well. Okay. So here we have got the things. So we are just giving the address name. So we can give any name and so let's say I'm just giving SW name and I'm just selecting United States. So these are all like the details that we can give the city, state, postal code and the county. So this information will change based on the country selection. And then here we have the additional, address purpose. Address purpose I'm giving for ordering and remit too. And if we want to use for RFQ and bidding as well, we can give it. And then we have the site information. So this is where we will give. So unless we give this information, the access to this particular BU, we will not be able to make any transaction. So I'm just giving HV site. It's not only source only. I'm just giving for purchasing payment. I'm enabling this as a primary key. And rest of the things are like whatever things we saw, the transaction tags and the payments methods. So I'm just saving this and closing this.
Sir,
Yes.
one thing, sir.
Yeah.
Suppose you have created this name, no, or this vendor. Okay, this
Okay.
supplier you have created. Same name, will it allow, sir?
No, actually, so basically we need to understand little technical of it. So how basically system will validate whether this is a duplicate or this is an original record. So always there will be a validation for the vendor name as well, but
Okay,
the primary validation is on the vendor number or the supplier number. So
okay,
basically this is an primary key. So
okay,
it is just for an understanding. I'm just saying. So you
okay.
don't need to go into that much technical,
Correct.
but to an basic understanding, wherever you have applied this primary key, you will not be able to enter and duplicate value. So why we will not be able to enter a duplicate value is that this primary key will be linked with the multiple, which means this is an unique value.
Okay.
So similarly, here for the vendor number, we have this unique value. So we will not be able to enter a duplicate value for the vendor name or vendor number. Fine.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So we have created the address. So let's check our site as well. So here we have different things like we have the options to attach with the purchasing, receiving, invoicing, payments, and the site assignment. So if you see in general column, basically you will see kind of an additional information where we will not mostly use this, like income tax reporting, and if you want to use this B2B communication, business to business communication, you will use it here. If you see, you will find that is kind of an gateway basically. And then we have purchasing. So purchasing again, this is an purchasing module related controls.
Okay.
So if you see pay self billing, if you want to use it, and then we have freight related things. So basically we will not go into procurement part of it. So basically we'll come to invoicing.
It's an overview. You are showing the.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the place where we will set up at customer level. So when I was explaining about the invoice options and the payment options, I was saying few things that we can enable at the customer site level as well as a global for the invoice options for the particular business unit. So when we define at this particular vendor site level, system will override the global configuration and it will allow us to process based on the vendor site configurations. So here we have the invoice currency. So invoice currency, I mean, I don't want to change it, but I'm just explaining it. So if you want to use different currencies from invoice to payment, we can use it here. And if we have pay group specific to this particular vendor, we can use this. And we have the different matching options. So if you want to use based on purchase order or receipt or the consumption advice, that we can use it. So basically they call the matching options in R2, that is two-way, three-way and four-way. Whether we want to match with the purchase order or we want to match with the receipt or we want to inspect it and then we want to maybe match the invoice, so that we can do it. So those are the different matching rules that we will apply. So it is just a term change, but the actions and the functionalities remain same. And here we have the hold. So hold is nothing but pay. How do we want to hold our payments? So hold all invoices, which means it will not allow us to make the payments. So we will say always no. And we have hold unmatched invoices. So that again we will say no. So if we say this is default from the payable options, so which means in payment options, whatever we have given, it will be consumed. So which means if we have said that hold unmatched invoices to yes in payment option, system will not allow us to proceed further or make payments. It will always hold. So here itself I am saying no. So hold unvalidated invoices. That also I will say no, because without validating, let's say I'm saving this transaction, which means unvalidated invoice, so system will consider this as an hold. So I'm saying this as well, no. And then we have the payment terms and term basis that we saw when we are defining this invoice options. So this is similar to this. And we saw this third party payment thing when we are defining the invoice options. So which means vendor one has delivered the quantity, and vendor one has to go some maybe 10,000 amount to vendor two. So vendor one, what he will suggest is that make a payment to vendor two so that his dues will be clear. So for those purposes, we have this third party payments so that we can define it here where we will give the remit to supplier details, and the respective payment will be remitted to the supplier. And then we have the payments. And payment, as I said, if we want to default a particular payment, we can default. Maybe I'll check this and I'll enable this default option. So we should be able to see this green mark, which means it has enabled. And then we have site assignments. Before that, I'll also show about the bank. So this is what this is the screen where we will create the vendor bank accounts. So basically, vendor bank accounts will be used when we make the online payments. But for a cash or check, we will not need it. But in case of online payment, we will need the account number, IFSC code, and the other details.
This in case of RTGS and NEFT, no?
Yes, correct.
Uh,
And if we want to process any multi-currency transaction, then we will have to enable allow international payments. So basically adding the vendor bank details.
Sir, one thing, sir.
Yeah,
In
yes.
this vendor, vendor type is there whether he is a one-time payment vendor or
Yeah,
like it's an indigenous vendor or international
yeah,
like
yeah, we
foreign
have
like
just a minute. Let me,
okay, just to know.
yeah, yeah, we have it. So while starting, I told that one-time option. So that is where
Okay,
we will define that this vendor is an one-time vendor.
okay,
So if you see here, this is an one-time supplier, which means this is an one-time vendor.
okay, okay. Uh,
If we disable this option, which means this is a regular vendor.
Regular vendor. No,
Yeah.
what I mean to say is there is a list will be there. I can choose it whether he is like that. Two options are there. One time vendor, regular vendor. That's all now, sir.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Can I block this vendor, sir? If some because of some issues in
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we can block. So we have basically inactive date. If you
Okay,
select any date, if you want to inactivate this vendor, the status will be changed
okay.
from active to inactive.
Inactive.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going back to the sites. And we have seen this bank details to be added, and the payment attributes is that basically like the payment file and the communication between the banks and these things, and the site assignment. So again, this is an important step. So unless we give the site assignment, we will not be able to make invoices against this vendor. So I select vendor, and if I want to use ship to bill to, if I'm using this PO matching and these things, I can use it. And then we have the liability and prepayment. So this is what I was saying when I said the invoice option setup. So if I wanted to use at the supplier site level, I can use it. So if I give it here, system will pick from here. If this field is blank, then system will use this invoice options, and sorry, it's not invoice option, it is common procurement options. So from there, basically, the system will pick the account codes and it will process for the specific expenses or the payments. So again, here, if you want to inactivate, we can inactivate. Okay, so we have enabled all the setups. I mean, we are good to create the invoices. So basically, we have created. So the only setup that is remaining is to create bank and bank accounts. So we have created a vendor and vendor sites. So now we will create bank and bank accounts. So I come to define cash management and banking configuration,
Okay.
and I select set up bank and bank accounts. So I click add bank name. I'll select the country. Let's say I say United States. So I give bank name. Let's say I give SW Bank, and these are all like additional informations like the bank code and the address of it and the contact information if manager or someone. So these are all optional information. So I'm just clicking save and I'm creating branch for this bank. So create branch. So automatically it has selected and I'm just giving SW branch and routing number. So this is routing number is specific to US basically. So where we will have the routing number for each branch, I guess. So I'm just giving value here. And similarly, we have the address and the contacts. So the transaction is saved. I mean, the master is saved. So we have created bank and branch. And let's create the bank account. So this is the branch that we have created. And let's give an account number. This is account name. Let me select the currency and the legal entity. So I'm giving account users. So unless I give this option, I will not be able to make payment or receive payments against this bank. So I'm just giving payable and receivable. So here I have a cash account and cash clearing. So when I'm making a payment or when I'm making an invoice, so the entry would be like expense account to liability account. So this will be picked from the common procurement and payable options. So when I'm making a payment, so always it will be in liability to cash clearing. So this cash clearing, it will be picked from the bank account setup. So this is where we will give. So let's say we have given only the cash account and we have just moved forward and we have created the cash. And if you want to make any transaction, the system will give an error while doing the accounting. So these two are mandatory when we say payment issue and clearing. I mean, when we want to account at both level, we should use both the cash account and cash clearing account. So I'm just giving both the accounts. So let me add the cash clearing account as well. So I'm choosing the cash clearing account. So here we have the reconciliation differences. So let's say we receive the bank statement from the bank, and if we want to reconcile with our sub-ledger transactions, and there is a difference between both. If we wanted to save somewhere, this reconciliation differences like the point 50 or point 25, say something like this, so that we can give it here. So I'm not giving those options. I'm just explaining. We have so and so options here, and then we have this active. So active is something says that this account is active, and we have multi-currency account. Unless we give this option against this bank account, we will not be able to make other currency payments, which means I'll be able to make only for the USD, not pound or INR. And then we have a netting account. Netting account is something that this is another functionality in APAR marking off. So this we will handle while we are seeing the accounts receivables. So basically what is netting? So netting is something that we have a common vendor who we will purchase and we will also supply goods. So for those cases, what we can do is like we can create a netting agreement. At the end of the day, maybe if the amount payable is more, we will process through this. So this is what we call netting. So to enable this netting process, we will need the bank account. So if we enable this as a netting account, which can be used for the netting process. So that we will see in detail while we are seeing the AR module. Okay. So then we have the payment document. So this is what I was saying when we are seeing the payment process profile. So basically, if you see here, so this is where we will define our checkbooks. So if we have the checkbooks, we can define. Or if we have only an payment document, maybe I'll give a name. And if you see here format, our payment process profile format and the format which we give it here should match. So if this is not matching, sometimes system will give an error or the warning message. It will not allow us to make the payment. Okay. Then we have the payment number. So I give maybe 1 to 999. So till this, I can make the payments. So once this has reached the 999, then I will have to again create another payment document. So here we have the checkbook. So checkbook, we can define the name and we can give the prefix and maybe we can give.
Oh, this is where I asked. Correct.
Yeah, yeah,
Start number. Okay.
yeah. Sorry, just yeah. So here basically we will have the start number and the ending number. So this is basically from the checkbook. Whatever we have, we are just defining. So we will say the number of documents as well. Okay, I'm just giving this as an triple nine. That's it. Okay, so I'm just saving this. Okay, then we have a few controls. So that is for the cash management and payables controls basically, mostly cash management. So where the reconciliation. So do we want to set up the reconciliation tolerance, or if we are doing this automatic reconciliation, basically we will create a rule set. So why do we need this rule set? So rule set will let us know that this particular transaction will be matched with this particular bank book balance update or the payment. So those rules that can be defined and attached it here. And we have the reversal mechanism. So reversal mechanism, we will need to just reverse the entries, or do we need to create a debit memo against it? So those kind of setups we can give it here. And as I said, we can attach the transaction, I mean bank statement transaction creation rule as well. So these are the just controls. I'm not using any controls. So basically, we will just directly go into business unit access. So this is like user and roles. So this, if you want user-based bank account access, we can define the security. So this is not a mandatory setup. So business unit access, this is mandatory. Unless we give the access, we will not be able to use this bank account for payment. Okay, I'm just clicking OK. I'm saving this bank account. So we have created the bank account. Okay. So the role should be assigned for this user. So what are the roles that we need to assign? So the roles that we need to assign is, let me show you also. So this should be payable manager, payable specialist, and payable supervisor. Okay. So these are the three roles that we need to create an invoice and payment, basically. So this is again given by Oracle. That is accounts payable manager, account payable specialist, and account payable supervisor. So we have assigned it. So if you see here, we have assigned against our reference data set as the business unit. So basically, reference data set is assigned to a business unit. So this is kind of an vice versa. So we have attached it, and the next step is to open period. So while creating the budget, we have opened the period for payable as well. So the periods are open. So now what we will do is like we will navigate to home and we will try to create few invoices. I'll navigate here. So as I told, this is again on dashboard. So dashboard always give us the immediate action that needs to be taken, and the recent items that we have created are if you want to approve or if you want to understand some basic information or the important information that will be listed down in this dashboard. So if you see here, it will tell us the scanned is 0 to 7 or 8 to 14 or 15. So basically here we have different ways of creating the invoices. So one is we can create through the manual process. That is, we can just give here create invoice and the create invoice and process it. And the other way of doing is it like we have the spreadsheet. So through the spreadsheet we can upload, and the other option is we Oracle or the Fusion application. We have received another thing called OCR. So OCR is something that we have the hard copy of the invoice which can be scanned and which can be put into Oracle repository, which will process and which will come into our interface table, and we can import it, and the invoice will be placed in the particular base table where we can view the invoices and manage invoices here. So here we can view those invoices. So these are the three ways of creating the invoices. So now let's try to create, and again here we have different types of invoices. So one is that we have the the standard invoice, then we have the debit memo, we have credit memo, and then we have prepayment. But if you take R12, we have multiple. It is more than 8 to 12 kinds of invoices we can create there. But here it is only 4 to 5, which is the 4 invoices and the recurring invoice we can create it here. So apart from that, the expense report and everything has been categorized under the expense offering. So that is a different part. So here what we will see is that how to create an invoice and how to process it, and how to process through payment workbench and how to process through PPR, and how this accounting entries are reflecting and this thing. This part we will see it here. So I'm just creating an invoice. Okay. So if we have the PO, then we can give the PO number. Based on this PO number, system will identify and system will populate the relevant information like business unit, supplier, and all those information. Since this is a manual invoice, I'm just giving the BU name, and I'm just giving the supplier that we have created. So I'm just picking the one which we created now. So the relevant information is populated. So this has picked automatically since we have created only one site. If we have two sites, maybe we can select from this list of value. So I'm just giving INV001. And let's say I book this for 25,000. And date as system has picked the system date, which is 26th July. And we have the additional information or more information where we can see the accounting and the tax related information as well. So here if you see the budget date and accounting date, and you can see the liability distributions and these things. And we have the lines. So if you see in R12, we have the distributions, and we have the lines, and we have headers. But here if you see, we have the header part that is split into 4 parts. That is general accounting, tax, and the additional information if we want to capture. And then we have lines. So in lines itself, we will give the distribution, and if we want to add, maybe we can add in distribution as well. But Fusion is little, how to say, little easier than the R12. Okay, so I'm just giving the distribution set that we have defined, so that I don't want to select the account code combination every time. And accounting date has been picked automatically based on the setup that we gave in invoice options. That invoice date should be the accounting date, so it has picked automatically. And we have given a setup also in the invoice option that budget date should be based on the accounting date, so that has picked automatically. And then rest we have the what do you call the tax related information and purchase related. And then we have asset. So let's say we are procuring an asset. So if we want to categorize this particular invoice as an asset, basically there are a few conditions. So that is like track as an asset, and the asset clearing account should be mentioned here, and it should be mapped to the particular category. So this detailed thing we will see when we are seeing the asset model. So for now, I'm just giving a heads up that this is how an asset will be booked through invoice. Okay, so now we have created it. So if we have the taxes defined for this, we will see the tax related information here. Since we don't have any tax related configuration, we will not see any values here. We will see always zero. Okay. So now what we will do, we will save this. So the moment we save this, system will say this is not validated. So what we will do, we will maybe we will. So we have the audit in the sense who has created. So when it has been created, so this thing. So this we call record history in R12. So similarly, we have it here. Okay. So then we have the invoice actions. So if you see invoice action, basically here we have multiple options to check. We can check the funds. If we are using this budget and these things, we can check the funds. And we have calculate tax. If you are using the taxation, system will mostly calculate the tax automatically. Or if you, when we save the transaction, system will calculate the tax, or we can click the calculate tax. And then we have check funds that is similar to what we did in GL module, the manual journal entry. And then we have validate the invoice. So this is what we have to do as a first step. And let's say we have the approval as well. So we, after validating is, maybe we will approve and then we will account the particular transaction. Since we don't have the approval part, we are just validating invoice. So I'm clicking validate. So we can see that it has validated. So let's post this transaction to general ledger. Okay, so the accounting is complete. View accounting. So let's click view accounting and see the accounting of it. So we can see that it is expense account to liability account. So accounting has generated. So what are the other options that we have? So if we want to cancel this invoice, we can cancel. So if you want to delete this invoice before validating and before this thing, once we have entered without saving, if you want to delete, we can delete. But if we have saved or validated, we will not be able to delete this invoice. We will be able to only cancel the invoice.
Sir,
And then we have,
the difference, sir, what it mean delete and cancel?
so cancel is something we have accounted this particular transaction. So we will not
Okay.
be able to delete it.
Oh,
Because system will restrict us to delete this invoice once the transaction data has moved to general ledger module.
okay.
Cancel is something at an, delete is something at an entry point where we have given the header information. And
Yes,
if we don't want this particular invoice to be created, we can delete.
delete.
But yeah, delete. So
Okay.
basically, delete is like an initial point, and
Okay.
cancel is like an final point where we cannot delete it, but we can only cancel it. So if we,
Cancel means the accounting entry will become reversed or
yeah, it will be
reverse,
reversed. It,
reversal of invoice.
yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah, it will be reversed basically.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are the options, and if we have approval, maybe we can view the level of approval. Maybe if we have 4 to 5 approval hierarchy, at what point till what point it is being approved, which can be seen from here. And
Depending
then,
on the amount of the invoice,
mm,
the approval level can be set, sir.
yes, yes,
Up
yes,
to 25,000, the user behind more than that, up to 1 lakh, like that.
yes,
We can
yes, yes.
that manager, this account manager can, and GM level, senior GM, like that.
Yes, yes, we can define that different parameters, but defining with amount is like the basic setup. But based on the requirement, we can pick the parameters and we can configure this approvals.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now I have made this invoice. And I have accountant as well. So now let me try to create a payment from the payment workbench. So I go to home and pick the payment function. Okay, here if you see, you will see different options. One is payment process request, and the other one is create payment. So create payment is what payment workbench. So I will just click create payment. So if you see, based on the vendors that we have selected, system is recommending that the discounts that we can give to this particular vendor. So how is this discount is generated is based on the previous transaction and this thing. So basically, Fusion has built an recall kind of an engine, and it will tell us whether this is good, better, and best. So this is for our this thing. So always we can just click accept and proceed if we don't want to give any discounts. And then we have the bank account. Okay. So we have selected, we have given the relevant payment information, and let's try to add invoice. So automatically system has displayed the available invoices. So our invoice is INV 001. So I'm clicking apply. Okay. So now system has picked up the amount of 25,000. So that it is not that always I'll pay 25,000 as a whole. Maybe I'll pay 10,000 now, and later point I'll pay another 10,000 and 5,000. So how to edit this is that we will click here and we can edit this amount. And if you want to give discount also, we can edit. So I don't want to reduce it. I'm just applying as a full. But if you want to do it, we can do from here.
Part payment, sir.
Yeah, partial payment.
Partial payment.
Yeah. Okay. I have done with invoice selection. I'm just clicking save and close. So payment one for 25,000 has been created. Now let's try to query this payment. Okay. So we have the payments created for us. And if you see here, we will have the detailed information of the payment. So we have the paid invoice history, where we can see that against this invoice we have made so and so payments. So if you want to see the payment information, we can see it here. So this is the payment thing, and payment file reference has been generated, and the relevant bank accounts are being displayed here. So let's account this payment. So it's accountant. Let's view the accounting entry. So it has created liability to cash clearing. So the moment we reconcile this payment, this will be cash clearing to cash. So you can see the status here. Reconciled is no. So here you can see the payment status. Payment status is negotiable. So once we clear this transaction, status will be changed to clear. So we have done payments in this one. Now let's try to create an PPR, payment process request. We will check if some other is already available, the invoices to be picked up. Or let me create a new invoice and come back and create a PPR. Okay, there is okay. Okay, we have created invoice. Let's try to create a payment process request and let's see if the invoice is being picked up. Okay, so here we can do two ways. One is like we will give it. So since this is just for an practice purpose, I'm just giving by myself. Or if you want to have a template defined already, we can pick up the template and based on the template, all the relevant field will be filled up and we can just click submit and check the PPR status. So for this time, I'm just giving PPR4. So I'm not selecting this thing. I mean, I give the this part is basically an criteria to select the invoice. So I can use the multiple options as a standard practice. It has been used with pay groups mostly. So if we have pay groups specific to this particular batch, then maybe we can select the pay group. Or let's say we have currencies based on the different countries, then we can give the currency and we can select the particular invoices. Or if it is pertaining to a particular business unit, we can choose that as well. So I'm selecting here directly the vendor name. So I have given vendor name and I'm giving the relevant bank information. So let me select the bank that we have created. Okay. So I'm just clicking submit. So I click manage payment process request. So I click refresh. So it is saying that installment selected, which means our invoices has been selected. So we can see that the numbers, how many invoices has been selected. So that is one as selected because we have only one available invoice to be processed. So now we can see the status has changed from installment selected to pending proposed payment review. So the reason why we are seeing this is that we have enabled the options to stop it here to review the payments. So let's review the payment, and the payment created is for 140,000, and no payments were rejected or removed. And here we can see the relevant information, like against which business unit we are creating it, and what is the invoice number, so that we can see it here in reference number. The invoice date and invoice number, all this information will be there. So let's resume payment process. So let's refresh to update the status. So if you see here, payment file processing is created. So let's try to open this and see. So it is getting formatted. So you can see all this relevant information. So if you have enabled this printer and all those things, we will see the default printer, and once this is done, then the check will be printed automatically in the printer which we have configured. And this remittance and all those things we have disabled, so we will not be able to see these things. So click done, and let's refresh and check this. Okay, so this is formatted, and this is ready for recording. So this is where if you want to terminate. So there are two ways. So one is like terminating, and the other one is cancellation. So there is no much difference. It is like canceling the particular payment. So I click submit. So record the print status. So if you see here, it is printed. So we can see that payment file confirmed. And let's try to check the status of this invoice. So we can see that unpaid amount is 0, which means payment has done. So let's go inside and see whether the payment has been done and what is the reference number and all those information. And let's click the payment. So we can see here that the payment has been created, and we can see that this is in negotiable status and it's not reconciled. Okay, so this is about the normal payment workbench, and the PPR, that is batch payment. So this we have seen, and let's try to create one prepayment, I mean the advance payment, and let's try to adjust the invoices against the prepayment. I say prepayment 001. So let's create for 20,000. I have created this as an prepayment, and let me add the lines. So let me add online as an 20,000. And let me validate this. Okay, this has this fund thing. So we have set up this funds for this. I mean, if you remember, while we are defining this budget, so we have set up for the business unit level as well. So let me reduce it to 1,000 and check. Okay, so let me check the funds. Okay, so I mean, I think since we have given this fund check, system is not allowing. I think it shouldn't allow for the different vendor as well. Let me check once. Yeah, the same process. So basically, if we wanted to add this invoice, then we will have to uh, add the funds to this particular business unit. Unless we add this, we will not be able to proceed further. So what we will do, let's try to reverse some invoices. So I take invoice 001 and I click cancel invoice. Okay, first I have to reverse the payment and then I have to reverse this. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm just avoiding this payment and I'm posting this. So you can see the accounting entries that has reversed automatically. So this is what we were saying earlier, that whether if we cancel this invoice or payment, whether the entries will be reversed. So it has reversed automatically. So let's take the invoice. So that is, so we can see that it has reversed automatically. So let's take the invoice number INV 002. Okay, let me take this. Let me cancel this. This is cancelled. Let me post to ledger. Okay, the entries has been reversed. Okay, so now let me create an invoice, I mean the prepayment, and try to apply. Okay, let me validate this. Okay, what I have to do is I have to load funds since I have chose for the absolute. So unless I chose,
So since we have fixed up absolute, that is why it's not
yeah, yeah.
okay.
So we will have to load the balances,
Okay.
and then only we will be able to create this invoice.
Okay. at the point.
Okay, now the funds has passed.
Okay.
So let's try to validate. Okay, this is done. And let's try to account this transaction. Okay, accounting entry is prepaid expense to liability.
So that
And now let's try to make payment, the pay in full. Okay, the payment is done. Let's account the payment as well. Maybe the vendor is different, I think. Okay, okay. The transaction is accounted. It is liability to cash clearing. So now let's check the prepayment status. So the prepayment status should be available. So which means we can match this prepayment against invoice. Yeah, this is available. So we can match an invoice. So what I will do is I will create an invoice and try to apply against this. I think we created with vendor on. Okay, let me try. Okay, so basically it is showing some error, some load issue.
Okay, sir.
Vision is right, so it will happen sometime.
Okay,
So the process is that basically we have created the prepayment and
okay,
we have created the invoice. So
okay,
the moment we click apply and apply prepayment, we will
okay,
select and click apply and account this transaction. So that's it. We will see the status as paid.
okay,
So this is about the prepayment. And apart from that, we have this debit memo and credit memo. So that is similar to this same process. So I'll
okay,
just create one debit memo against this. So basically, it's just on difference that one will be created by vendor and the other will be created by customer.
okay.
But both gives same response that will reduce the balance. So let's try to account it and okay. If you see that entries will be reversed, which means it will reduce our outstanding. So that is the purpose of debit memo and the credit memo. Okay, so that's all I have for payables module. So maybe if
Okay.
you have any doubt or something, you can just ask me. I'll respond.
Sure.
So anything else that we want to get in this one?
No, sir. This is okay.
Okay,
We
fine.
will go through your video and again we will come back if there is any doubt.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Just go through and let me know
Yeah, yeah,
if
definitely.
you
Because when
have
we
any.
go through, we will have some other doubts. No? That are in the next class we will clarify. You are in between.
Yeah, yeah,
We will.
sure, sure. Yeah. Okay, fine. Then thank you for joining.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.